very aware that your parents gave up a lot for you, and so you're expected to perform. And you know, you're not going to see, not that this doesn't happen, but in immigrant communities, but you know, we kind of laugh about it. You know, there's just an expectation that you will do really well by your parents, and that even when you're 30 or 40, that their pride in you and their view of you is still really, really important. So I think that that's something, and I know that even as a parent, I married a white guy, basically, and it's pretty interesting, our parenting styles, you know, where I would definitely, like, you got to work hard, right? Like, it's just what it is. It doesn't matter if you're talented or smart. If you don't put, you know, a strong work ethic into it, you're just not going to succeed. And so that it's been interesting to see kind of that thread. You know, they're actually, I came when I was 2, but they're technically the first generation born in the U.S. So.
And I'm sure, just to come on this topic, I'm sure that, because one of the things we've talked about in the show in the past is, just to keep it on the political side and everything, is I find it very hilarious. I'm going to talk about that person up there in the White House, but that he wants to build a wall, and I'm sitting there going like, who's supposed to build this wall? Last time I looked, most of the people on the workforce were Spanish or of Spanish descent, so I'm not thinking you're going to build a wall to keep your own self out.
No, I think it's, you know, I think that that's a whole other conversation, but, you know, as we've seen in many other places, people just like to make scapegoats out of our most vulnerable population sometimes, because it's easier than actually implementing good policy.
Yeah, and a lot of times we also get caught up in stereotypes as well, because I know even now, whether it's the African-American community or the Latin community, I oftentimes hear people make statements that they're all, like, if they hear 2 Spanish people talking on the elevator, the automatic fear is that they're talking about them, when more than likely they're discussing a recipe.
Maybe, or just whatever they may be discussing. Yeah.
But I'm saying it has nothing to do with the fears that sometimes our people have of each other, and sometimes these fears are very unbiased, or I mean, very much biased and based on not any sort of reality.
Yeah, and I think that actually this will speak, you know, we were talking about education before. At the end of the day, our kids going to school together is one of the most important things that we can give them. And I say this as a product of North Carolina public schools. And my kids are in public schools for a reason, and it's because I need them to understand that the world that this is the world that you're in, and you need to understand how to operate in it, and how you're going to interact like that as an adult. And that's really, really important. And I think it's a lot harder, you know, to other people or have stereotypes about people if you have real world experience and say, you know, but that's not been my experience, so what are they talking about, you know?
Exactly. And we've got about 10 minutes at the end. I want to get everybody to give their website so that people can maintain conversations, and I want to invite all of you back at some point or another. But one of the other things that I'm curious about, Javier, is we hear a lot of talk in the African-American community about the prison-to-school pipeline. I know that it exists in the Latin community as well, but I don't hear that conversation as much. And I was wondering why you think that is. I mean, I know it exists there, but it seems that conversation winds up being more of a, for lack of a better term, a black and white kind of issue. I don't know that we necessarily hear about the brown and the red people that are part of that as well.
So I think it's just and this is just my observation. So the population that's in Durham and Raleigh and Charlotte, they're still very new. So in most families, parents were not born here. Not all, obviously, so I don't want to speak for everyone. Often, even within the siblings, some were born elsewhere, and the younger siblings were maybe born in the States. And so they've done a lot of studies and a lot of, like, just thinking through, like, how people integrate into the society when they move from somewhere else, when they emigrate in. And so, you know, communities in LA and New York and Chicago, those communities that are Latino or brown, and not just Latinos, other communities, have been there longer, and so they in some cases have been marginalized for longer, right? So they don't have that necessary, you know, maybe they've tried to, you know, do better for themselves, but then because of how we treat Black and brown people, and because of institutional racism, have not succeeded necessarily, and so their kids may not have the same kind of outcome. So there's in North Carolina, the population here is so young in comparison to especially like places like LA, where obviously it was Mexico. So at some point we took the land. So I think that's the difference. And so if you go into like LA and New York and Chicago and places that have larger Miami, larger historic Latino communities, I think you probably would hear that prison to pipeline conversation more than maybe you hear in North Carolina.
But the one conversation you do hear in North Carolina a lot among the Spanish population, I know we've got just limited time to deal with it, but I just wanted to hear a little bit of your views on it, is the whole conversation around what ICE is doing, because they are still getting people and deporting them. We have the guy that was just deported recently, and he was hanging out at a church.
Right. So that's something that has been I've been very involved in as an individual and as an elected official, doing as much as I can, especially to kind of push at the levels of the state and especially federal. To really,
go ahead, we still got time.
Okay, I was like, I don't know what that noise is, but and so for us that is a serious issue. This past November we saw, and it was amazing. It was I think it was all Black men actually who won their sheriff's races. So you had Wake County, which is where Raleigh is, Forsyth County, Winston-Salem, Guilford County, Greensboro, Durham, and Mecklenburg all elect Black men sheriffs. In many cases, they were the first Black sheriff in those counties, and all of them, one of their key components of their platforms was this relationship with ICE in their jails, and that they weren't going to cooperate with this federal program anymore because you don't actually have to; it's optional. And so it was really interesting to see that kind of. And that's what I want to see, that, cross community, that these policies affect marginalized communities maybe in different ways, but still affect our Black and brown communities in very traumatic and intense ways. So I thought that was just a really powerful statement by the voters and very brave of those men to come out with those policies.
Yeah, that was very brave of them. There's no doubt about that. I think we've got about 8 more minutes to go, so I just wanted to hear from this lovely roundtable discussion. I want to thank all of you for calling in, by the way. If each of you and, let's see, I'll start with the Phillip since they came in last. If you have any, last-minute thoughts and things, words of wisdom that you want to share with our listeners, and, of course, any way that people can get in touch with you, which is always the most important thing when we do these kind of shows, because we like to maintain these kind of conversations on an ongoing basis, because we'll also post information on our Facebook page as well as other mediums. And, of course, as I said before, all of you are invited to come on the show again in the future, because I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and learned a lot about everything from the liquor industry to the beer industry to what's going on Javiera's race and what's happening in the film worlds and things of that nature, and even branding. So if each of you will start, like I said, with the Phillips, if they'll give us their words of wisdom and the ways that people can reach out to them.
Well,
sure,
thank you. And
jump in real quick. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Well, I just came in at the tail end of the conversation, so I didn't catch everything, but I think there's a lot of very interesting stuff that you guys are talking about that I definitely can be interested in to hear more about. So my focus these days is I'm a filmmaker. I got started in documentaries, but I've kind of found my own sort of niche on the internet making video essays, which are basically almost like short documentaries about the art of cinema and history of film and sort of different rabbit holes that I like to go down. So you can find out more about what website, which is just phillipbrubaker.com. It's just my name.com, philipbrubaker.com. And once again, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, Phillip. And the next Phillip?
Hey, again, it was a pleasure being on the show. And again, I came in a little bit late, but I did get a chance similarly to hear so many interesting things. I want to thank everybody for sharing their perspectives and what they're working on. For me, in my role as an anthropologist and strategist, I encourage everyone to find those values that are important to them and use them to form the basic foundation of what they want to present to the world, whether you're an individual, a brand, or an organization. And that's the type of work that I'm really focused on. It's human-centered design. The best way to connect with me is via my website, and similarly, it is my name, so it's just philipmckenzie.com. phillip.com, Phillip with one L. And it has all of my information, including my speaking engagements. I'm going to be traveling pretty soon overseas to do a keynote speak and a workshop. So, and I do that both internationally and domestically. So those who are looking for someone to come into their organization and talk to them about culture issues, branding issues, you can find my booking information on my site, and it's phillipmckenzie.com. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And Javiera?
Thank you. So thanks so much for having me. My campaign website is Javiera Caballero Para, so PARA.com. That's the easy way to interact with my campaign. It will be a real interesting and fun ride between now and November. We are actually running this as an interesting development in Durham politics a little bit. So there's 3 at-large city council seats, and right out of the gate, the 3 of us who are incumbents have endorsed each other. So that'll be it should be fun between now and November.
Definitely. Jamel, how can people reach you in Harlem Brewing?
Yeah, thanks again, Mark, for having me, and to all the guests. It was a wonderful conversation. You can reach me at harlembeernc.com. That's our website. Instagram is harlembeernc, harlembeernc. Facebook is Harlem Beer Distributing NC.
Naomie, we started with you. We'll end with you in terms of this. I'm sure me and Dean will have some party words. But, Naomie, how can folks reach you? And definitely enjoyed having all of you on as guests. And like I said, learned a lot. So, Naomie, how can folks reach you and learn what Southern Wicked is up to?
Yes, no, thank you for having me on the show and for just all the knowledge that was shared with all the, inclusive guests. You can reach Southern Wicked Lemonade at www.wickedlemonade.com or at Wicked Lemonade on Instagram, and I can be reached at Wicked CEO on Instagram.
Yes, and like I said before, definitely looking forward to having all of you back on at some point in the near future to continue these conversations. Dean, we're about ready to wrap it up. I think we've got about another 3 minutes. What kind of parting words do you have to say as we get ready to wrap it up on another edition of the show here? And, we've had some amazing conversation as always, and we'll have some more amazing conversation next week as well. I'm going to pull up and find out what we've got going on while you're saying whatever your parting words are.
Well, you know what? I just want to thank all of our guests for spending time with us tonight and dropping some wisdom on us. So we greatly appreciate each and every one of you. We thank you and welcome to the Straight Talk family. My parting words, as I do every week, and I say it and I keep saying it, when you walk outside your front door, it's showtime and the world is your stage. Just make sure that people are not watching the rehearsal. And with that being said, it's the 6-man Dean Geronimo, the bridge builder, signing off for yet another week of Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Who do we have next week, Mark?
That's what I'm trying to pull up to see what we've got, because we got some more entrepreneurs and activists and things of that nature. I love my entrepreneurs and activists, so I'm trying to pull it up. Yes, and the computer is, of course, not acting right. It wants to be uncooperative. It can do that sometimes. But while it's trying to pull up, and we'll see if it actually works or not. But I can tell you this much. We did get North Dakota to join us, and as you know, on our Facebook page, we have, as you put out there, over 2,000 likes. So I think we're pushing near 2,500, maybe 3,000 likes. So we're trying to get more and more people to like what we've got going on. So that was a very good news that we had earlier today, that we got over those likes. And I've heard people liking us from places as far away as Cairo, Egypt, Nepal, Mexico, and various other parts of the globe. So, we're not just here in the North Carolina area or even in North America, but we're throughout the world and trying to become even more of a global force. So we're going to have some amazing guests. I'll be posting that on the page, on our Straight Talk page, because right now, like I said, the computer is trying to be stubborn. They can do that sometimes. They just have a mind of their own. But I do know that among the guests that we have are some more entrepreneurs and some more activists, as well as some other people out of the arts world. And coming up very soon, not immediately, won't be next week, but very soon, we'll be having John Brown, who is the man behind the jazz program over at Duke. So he is one of our upcoming guests in an upcoming edition of this show. So, we've got some amazing folks. And if you're interested in being a guest, I'm always looking for a new guest and new folks to join in the conversation. You can hit me at bluesradio@gmail.com. You can also let me know what you thought of the show. And